The show begins with a girl named Rhiannon, a quiet, gentle-looking young woman with childlike innocence written all over her face. She doesn't like trouble and appears soft-hearted to everyone around her, but what she hides inside is something no one could ever imagine, because deep down, she wishes she could get rid of anyone who upsets her. We learn that she keeps a list, a kill list, full of names of the people she hates and wishes she could erase from her life, like the girl who works at the supermarket and ruins her mood every day, or her coworkers who treat her with zero respect. Even her own sister, Saren, who ignores her messages and acts like she doesn't exist. And then there's her mother, who walked out on them when she was still a child. She still hasn't forgotten Julia, the classmate who bullied her all throughout school, making fun of her every chance she got. Later, we see Rhiannon with her father in the hospital as he undergoes treatment. When she rushes to the nurse for help after his condition suddenly worsens, she finds the nurse busy arguing with someone and completely ignoring her pleas. By the time she returns to the room, her father is already gone. Shocked and heartbroken, Rhiannon leaves the hospital in a complete daze, then breaks down in the car, filled with rage and wishing the entire world would just disappear. At her father's funeral, her sister Saren shows up and sits beside her without saying a single word. Then, as Rhiannon greets guests, she suddenly freezes when she spots Julia approaching with her friends, the same girl who tormented her for years. She quickly walks away before Julia notices her. After the funeral, Saren tells Rhiannon that they need to sell their father's house. Rhiannon is stunned and tells her she still lives there. But the real shock hits when Saren reveals that Julia is the one who will be helping them sell the house. At that moment, Saren cuts the conversation short, clearly not wanting to discuss the house any further, and she leaves Rhiannon standing there alone. Later that night, while riding public transport, Rhiannon opens Julia's Instagram profile and scrolls through her perfect photos. Photos that show a happy, successful life, while Julia is the very person who shattered her self-esteem and ruined her childhood. 10 days later, Rhiannon finally returns to work. We learn she works as a receptionist at a well-known newspaper, but no one at the office even notices she was gone, or that she took time off because her father had just died. She's furious, feeling like she wants to destroy every single one of them for treating her like she's invisible. Then, her boss, Norman, walks in and tosses his coat at her, ordering her to hang it up like she's a servant. Rhiannon gathers the courage to tell him she wants to apply for a reporter position, but after reading her resume, he tells her she's not good enough, she's weak, and not suitable for the job. On her way out, he even hands her the application paperwork back and tells her to throw it in the trash. Rhiannon storms away, overwhelmed with anger, and starts shredding papers on her desk with a box cutter, cutting through them with pure frustration. At that exact moment, a young man named AJ arrives and tells her he has a meeting with Norman. Rhiannon watches through the office window as Norman laughs and treats AJ with respect and warmth, the complete opposite of how he treats her. Jealousy fills her eyes, and hatred boils inside her. Soon after, Norman comes out to announce that AJ is officially their new reporter. Rhiannon snaps. She follows AJ outside, watching him closely, while wishing she could eliminate him from existence and take the job she deserved. She reaches into her pocket for the box cutter, but she accidentally cuts her own hand instead. The blade slips from her fingers and clangs loudly against the ground. AJ turns back when he hears the blade hit the ground and spots Rhiannon standing right behind him. She panics, freezes for a second, then quickly lies, telling him she only followed him to give him the new employee form he needs to fill out. Sensing the tension, AJ awkwardly asks if he took her job because she seems upset with him. Rhiannon forces a fake smile and denies it, waiting for him to walk away so she can grab the blade off the ground without him noticing. Later, as Rhiannon walks down the street with her dog, a car drives by and someone throws a baby diaper at her. Another flame added to her burning fury. Moments later, she sees a giant billboard featuring Julia, a glamorous real estate ad showcasing Julia's perfect life. Rhiannon's anger spikes, and without realizing, she grabs her own hair and starts ripping chunks of it out. Then tragedy strikes. She turns around and sees her dog lying lifeless on the road, hit by a speeding car that didn't even stop. Her heart shatters again. She looks up at Julia's billboard, filled with rage and pain even deeper than before. She buries her dog in their garden and leaves a voicemail for Saren, her voice trembling as she tells her that she's completely alone now. She begs her sister not to sell their father's house, especially not through Julia. She pleads for Julia to stay away from her life because she won't let her ruin it again. Determined and desperate, Rhiannon heads to the nightclub where Julia is partying with her friends. She confronts her, telling her to back off and stop messing with her life because she won't allow the sale of her father's home. But Julia responds with cold indifference. She reminds Rhiannon that selling the house was Saren's request, not hers. And she makes it clear she doesn't care about Rhiannon or her life at all. If her life is a mess, that's her own fault. To Julia, Rhiannon is invisible, a nobody. Julia then shoves her aside mockingly. And in that moment, Rhiannon flashes back to school, remembering the day Julia ripped off her wig, exposing to everyone how she used to tear her own hair out every time she was hurt, every time she was bullied, every time Julia made her feel worthless. Suddenly, Rhiannon snaps out of her memories and walks away, shaken. She ends up sitting alone by a lake, trying to clear her mind. But then a guy named Ryan shows up and casually starts peeing right next to her. Disgusted by his behavior, she confronts him, only for him to mock her and say he didn't even notice she was there. His words fuel her rage even more, and she hits him out of sheer frustration. That sets Ryan off. He gets aggressive and moves toward her like he's going to attack. In a violent flash of anger, Rhiannon pulls out her blade and plunges it into his stomach, again and again, repeatedly stabbing him with all the fury she's buried inside. When she finally stops, Ryan is dead. She drags his body into the lake and pushes it underwater, hoping it will disappear forever. Back home, she stares into the mirror, trembling, before she breaks into a furious primal scream, as if releasing years of pain at once. The next morning, Rhiannon wakes up to find dried blood on her neck. Panic takes over. It's like she can't even remember what she did, like her mind has erased the murder completely. Terrified, she throws her blood-stained clothes into the washing machine and sits in front of it, shaking uncontrollably. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and her fear spikes again. She answers the door to find Craig, one of her father's co-workers from the workshop. He hands her an envelope, paperwork showing money transfers, because he's interested in buying the workshop from her father's estate. She stares at him silently, shocked, before taking the envelope and closing the door. Later, while riding public transport, she passes by the same lake, and her heart nearly stops when she sees police officers pulling Ryan's body out of the water. Her breathing turns frantic. When she arrives at work, she nervously looks around the office. Moments later, Norman gathers everyone and asks if there's any breaking news, saying the newspaper desperately needs a huge exclusive. That's when Jeff, one of the reporters, walks in with exactly what Norman wants: the discovery of a dead body at the lake. A young man named Ryan? Norman loves the story idea, and at that very moment, Rhiannon makes a decision. She's going to make sure she becomes impossible to ignore. She confidently tells Norman that Ryan was murdered the night before, stabbed with a sharp weapon, and to avoid looking suspicious, she claims she overheard people talking about it on the bus on her way to work. Norman then sends AJ to the crime scene to investigate, which annoys Rhiannon. Once again, Norman completely overlooks her. A little later, Jeff and AJ return from the crime scene and update everyone. They reveal that the killer stabbed Ryan 14 times in his stomach, legs, and arms. Rhiannon freezes with fear for a moment, terrified that something tying her to the murder might have been found. But she relaxes when they say the police found no clues or evidence leading to the killer. While peeking into Jeff's notebook, Rhiannon notices messy words and odd scribbles she can't understand. Suddenly, AJ appears right in front of her, making her jump. She nervously tells him that she feels Jeff isn't sharing everything he knows. AJ then calmly tells her he's sure the murderer will get caught soon, which sends another chill down her spine. She tries to defend herself by saying that half the crimes from last year are still unsolved. Later at her desk, Jeff calls her and says he needs Norman because he's found new information about Ryan. Rhiannon lies and tells him Norman is busy, but that Norman asked her to take the updates instead. She then walks straight into Norman's office and lies again, saying she has already found the full name of the victim: Ryan Lloyd, who lived with his mother in the same house. Norman raises an eyebrow, surprised. How did you find that out? Jeff is the one assigned to the case. Cornered again, Rhiannon quickly comes up with another lie, saying Jeff couldn't make it inside because his car tires had burst, and that someone needs to get to Ryan's home immediately before another newspaper steals the scoop. Rhiannon tries to convince Norman that she should be the one to go, arguing that Ryan's mother would feel more comfortable talking to a woman. Next, we see her heading to Ryan's house, but AJ is right beside her. He apologizes, explaining that Norman insisted he accompany her. Rhiannon snaps at him in frustration, but then quickly apologizes, saying she's been emotionally drained since her father died. AJ opens up in return, telling her that when his grandmother passed away, the person he was closest to, he became angry and violent for months. He even kicked a wall so hard he broke his toe. They finally arrive, and Ryan's mother answers the door. She's clearly upset when she hears they're from the press, but AJ handles the conversation smartly, speaking gently, expressing sympathy, helping convince her to let them in. As Ryan's grieving mother talks tearfully about her son, Rhiannon freezes the moment she says, "If I ever find the monster who killed him, I'll skin him alive." Rhiannon's heart pounds even faster when she learns Ryan recently had an angry confrontation with a coworker named Dave. That's when she excuses herself to go to the bathroom, but instead sneaks into Ryan's bedroom. There, she finds paperwork about Ryan being fired and steals it before anyone notices. She rushes out of the house, holding her breath until the front door closes behind her. Back in the car, Rhiannon tells AJ they have to go see Dave immediately, then shows him the documents she took. Ryan was fired for misconduct, which to her means he might have been the kind of person who deserved what happened. AJ stares at her, disturbed by the way she said that. Realizing she went too far, Rhiannon quickly changes her tone, pretending she only wants a strong story to impress Norman and outperform Jeff. Rhiannon and AJ head to meet Dave, and when they tell him Ryan is dead, he's completely stunned. They reassure him he's not a suspect. They just want to know what happened between them. Dave explains that Ryan was unstable, constantly harassing him, and even spreading lies that he was a child predator. Ryan caused so many problems at work that once everyone realized he was just making things up, the company fired him. Later in the car, Rhiannon's phone buzzes. A message from Saren. She writes that Julia has found a buyer for the house, and they're on their way there right now. Rhiannon's eyes widen in panic. She begs AJ to drive her home immediately. Once she gets there, she rushes to the bathroom, cleaning the bathtub where her bloody clothes had been. She grabs the knife she left in a pot to hide it, just seconds before Julia walks in with the potential buyer. They roam through the house, checking every room, while Rhiannon stands there boiling with frustration and anger. After they leave, she heads back to work to update Norman with everything she's discovered. Jeff is furious. She stole the story right out from under him. Norman decides they should both publish the piece together, and although Jeff hates the idea, Rhiannon couldn't be happier. Her plan is working. Her day gets even better when Norman, on his way out, casually invites her to join the team for drinks to celebrate her success. Later at the bar, Rhiannon finally feels like she belongs. She even gets up on stage to sing, enjoying a moment where life almost feels good again, until police officers suddenly walk into the bar. Rhiannon freezes, terror flooding her eyes. The police want to question everyone, and she knows exactly why. Rhiannon rushes into the restroom, terrified the police might be there because of her. Inside, she finds graffiti on the wall, Ryan's name written with an insult right next to it. She actually smiles, relieved that Ryan clearly had many enemies besides her. But then Officer Marina walks into the bathroom, and Rhiannon panics again, quickly slipping out before the cop notices anything strange. Back outside, she spots a waitress arguing with a man, Mike, and suddenly, Rhiannon recognizes him. He's the same guy who was yelling at the nurse the night her father died. The same distraction that kept the nurse from helping him in time. Rhiannon's anger resurfaces. This is someone she believes deserves to die. She follows him outside and calls out, pretending she needs help with her cat. The moment he turns, she lunges forward and stabs him repeatedly. This time, she feels pure satisfaction, relief, pleasure, even. Killing him feels like justice. As she walks away afterward, she sees another billboard of Julia's smiling face and stares at it with burning hatred. Julia must be next. The next morning, Rhiannon begins stalking Julia, listing every reason she deserves to die. Julia has friends. Julia has a successful job. Julia lives comfortably in a nice home. Meanwhile, Rhiannon is miserable, ignored at work, friendless, and her own house is on the verge of being sold. Then she realizes Julia even has a boyfriend, while nobody ever notices Rhiannon at all. So Rhiannon starts planning Julia's murder. She empties out her freezer and climbs inside, testing if it's big enough to hide Julia's body. Later, Craig calls her, apologizing for not texting after their date. He says he should have reached out sooner. Rhiannon's eyes light up. She's thrilled. She really likes Craig. She wants more than anything for him to fall for her and maybe even build a life together. Craig then asks if she'd like to go out with him that evening, and she immediately agrees, thrilled without even thinking twice. Later, Rhiannon stops by a supermarket to buy cleaning supplies. The cashier completely ignores her, chatting on her phone and laughing with a friend, calling Rhiannon a weirdo right to her face. Humiliated and furious, Rhiannon grabs the girl's phone and drops it straight into a cup of juice before casually walking away. Back home, she calls Julia and invites her to come see the house, freshly cleaned and organized, hoping to lure her there at night. But Julia tells her she's busy and suggests they meet tomorrow instead. So Rhiannon texts Craig, letting him know she's free tonight if he still wants to go out. He replies almost instantly. They'll meet at 7. The next day at work, Rhiannon brings coffee and pastries for everyone, trying to act like she's part of the team. team. But when she sees the article about Ryan printed on the front page of the newspaper, she notices Jeff's name is the only one credited. She confronts him, demanding to know why he left out her name when Norman clearly said they were supposed to share the byline. Jeff laughs mockingly and tells her he wrote the actual story. She was useless. He leaves his coffee behind as he walks away. And that's when rage takes over Rhiannon again. She discreetly pours a strong laxative into his drink. Jeff returns, grabs his cup, and walks off without noticing. Suddenly, Ryan's mother storms into the office, furious about the article, especially the part exposing Ryan's lies about Dave. She yells that the story will destroy her son's reputation and make everyone hate him. Rhiannon coldly tells her that Ryan wasn't a good person and deserved what happened to him. The entire office goes silent, stunned by the cruelty in her words. Moments later, Jeff begins cramping and rushing to the bathroom, where he ends up stuck for the rest of the day. Norman decides to send Jeff home to rest and assigns Rhiannon to cover his duties for the day. Later, she gets herself ready for her date, putting on makeup and changing into nicer clothes. AJ notices her transformation. She looks confident, stylish, beautiful. He compliments her and asks if she's going to meet her boyfriend. She denies it and claims she just has work to do at her father's workshop. That night, Rhiannon waits for Craig at the restaurant, a little nervous as he arrives late, but when he finally shows up, the mood quickly becomes romantic. They end up going back to his place, and she spends the night there. The next morning, she wakes up thrilled. It was the perfect night for her, but the moment doesn't last long. She receives a call from Officer Marina asking her to come in for questioning about Ryan's death. Panic hits her like a punch. At the station, she sits with Marina and the lead investigator, Roy. They reassure her that this isn't an official interrogation. They're simply gathering accounts from people who were around the area, hoping someone might have seen something useful. Rhiannon nervously responds that her father and her dog both died that day, insisting she didn't witness anything unusual. When she returns to the office, she learns the police have discovered Mike's body, murdered the exact same way Ryan was. Fear creeps through her veins again. After work, Rhiannon heads to Craig's workshop, only to be blindsided when she sees Julia there. And then the real punch lands. Julia tells them she's no longer selling the house to the potential buyer because she's decided she wants to buy it herself. Rhiannon's entire world cracks. She storms out, but not before stealing Julia's phone. Once inside her car, she starts screaming violently, every ounce of anger she has exploding all at once. In a burst of rage, Rhiannon storms out of the car and slashes Julia's tire with her knife. Then she waits, watching from a distance like a predator. As soon as Craig leaves, she approaches Julia with a fake concerned smile, offering to help since her tire is suddenly damaged. Julia asks her to call an Uber instead, but Rhiannon warns her that a dangerous killer is on the loose, which scares Julia enough to agree to ride with her. Julia soon grows suspicious when she realizes Rhiannon is driving back to the house instead of somewhere safe. Rhiannon lies, saying there's a black stain in the basement she needs Julia to inspect before finalizing the house sale. Julia hesitates, but follows her inside. That's when Rhiannon snaps, confessing that she is the murderer the police are hunting. She tells Julia that bullies like her deserve to die, reminding her how she once destroyed her life, and now has come back to destroy whatever is left of it. Julia panics and tries to escape, but Rhiannon grabs her. The two fall into a violent struggle. Rhiannon hits Julia in the head with a heavy object, hard enough that she believes she's killed her. But Julia is still alive. We next see Julia tied up in the basement, unable to move. She calls Rhiannon insane, a sick, delusional killer. Rhiannon, shaking with fury, screams that Julia made her this way, that years of bullying pushed her over the edge. She confesses how she tore her own hair out until she had to wear a wig because of what Julia did to her. But Julia doesn't show an ounce of remorse. Instead, she coldly tells her that she alone is responsible for what she's become. She tells her she isn't a victim. She's a serial killer searching for excuses. Rhiannon breaks down, too overwhelmed to speak. She covers her own mouth, trying to silence the voices and the rage inside her, then leaves Julia tied up in the basement and walks away. Rhiannon collapses into her father's robe, holding it tight as she cries, screaming in anger and heartbreak. Then she heads to Craig's workshop to talk to him, asking if something was going on between him and Julia. He denies it and says he assumed Rhiannon already knew Julia wanted to buy the house. While there, she manages to sneak the flash drive containing the workshop's security camera footage, making sure no one can ever know. Julia got into her car last night or that Rhiannon slashed her tire. On the bus ride back, she leaves Saren a voice message demanding that she check with her first before selling the house to anyone. A creepy guy sits too close beside her, pressing up against her, so she calmly places her hand on his leg and asks if that makes him uncomfortable. He panics and moves away immediately. Rhiannon smiles, proud that she's no longer the one being pushed around. Later at work, she walks straight into Norman's office and tells him she has new information, but she won't share it unless he promotes her to junior reporter like AJ. Forced into a corner, Norman agrees, but only as a trainee under supervision. Rhiannon then reveals her supposed scoop, a missing girl who might have been kidnapped by the same killer the police are after. Norman asks where the information came from. She refuses to say, hinting at a confidential source. Impressed, he assigns her to lead the story. AJ congratulates her, genuinely happy for her success. He's proud and clearly cares about her. Rhiannon basks in the moment. For once, things are finally going her way. AJ also fills her in on Mike's background. He was a greedy landlord who rented out cheap apartments to undocumented immigrants and had recently kicked a single mother and her child out onto the street. In other words, Mike had a long list of enemies, and Rhiannon can't help but feel justified, again. AJ suggests that he and Rhiannon go out together after work, and she can't hide how excited she is. She happily agrees. Later, Rhiannon starts stalking Julia's friend Lucille online. She sends her a message pretending to be worried because Julia isn't answering her phone. Lucille replies immediately and sends her number, begging Rhiannon to call. She's terrified because Julia has been missing since last night. Rhiannon acts completely shocked and concerned, though deep inside, she's thrilled that everyone believes Julia simply disappeared. She goes to meet Julia's friends, Lucille, Annie, and Paige, continuing her performance as the supportive friend desperate to find Julia. She promises she'll do whatever it takes to help bring her back. Meanwhile, Officer Marina reviews the nightclub's CCTV footage from the night Julia vanished. She notices the heated argument between Julia and Rhiannon and sees Rhiannon storming out, visibly furious. The timestamps also prove that Rhiannon lied in her statement about how long she stayed there. Marina tries to contact Julia for questioning, but learns from her office assistant that Julia never showed up for work today. Back with Rhiannon, she heads to the home of Marcus, Julia's boyfriend, claiming she's writing an article about Julia's disappearance for the newspaper. She wants to help find her as quickly as possible. Marcus invites her inside and opens up. He's a mess, angry and scared. He has never gone a single day without hearing from Julia. For her to vanish like this, not answering any calls or texts, something must be terribly wrong. He's convinced she's been kidnapped. Rhiannon pretends to console him, but inside, she knows exactly where Julia is, and she has no intention of letting anyone find her. Rhiannon subtly asks Marcus if there were any recent problems or arguments between him and Julia, but he insists everything was perfect. They were fine and completely happy together. He also mentions that he reported Julia's disappearance to the police earlier that morning. Rhiannon then asks him for a photo of Julia to use in her article, specifically one where Julia looks sad. Marcus heads off to find a picture that fits, and while he's gone, Rhiannon quickly steals one of Julia's shirts. She also accidentally spills a cup of coffee on the couch, ruining it, then sits back down looking innocent and quiet just as Marcus returns with the photo. Later at the office, Rhiannon is glowing with excitement. Her very first published article is out in the newspaper. She finally feels like she's seen, respected, no longer invisible. AJ is genuinely happy for her too, proud of what she's accomplished. But suddenly, Saren calls, panicked. Julia isn't answering any of her calls, and a man named Bill is at the house right now to take measurements because he's ready to buy the property. Saren has no choice but to go meet him and hand over the key. Rhiannon's heart drops. She bolts out of the office and races home like a madwoman. When she arrives, she sees Bill standing at the front door, key in hand. She snatches it away from him and angrily orders him to leave, shouting that the house isn't being sold. Bill, startled by her rage, backs off and leaves without arguing. Later that evening, we see Rhiannon getting ready for her outing with AJ. She picks out an outfit she's extra confident in, the very shirt she stole from Julia's wardrobe, as if she's trying to become Julia or replace her completely. Rhiannon becomes furious hearing Julia shouting for help, desperate for someone to find her. She storms into the basement and coldly tells Julia that screaming is pointless. She already published an article saying Julia mysteriously disappeared. No one is coming. She warns Julia not to underestimate her again. Julia fires back, insisting that Marcus and her friends will come looking. Then she notices the shirt Rhiannon is wearing, her shirt, and begins mocking her appearance and messy makeup. The insult triggers a new wave of rage in Rhiannon, who forces herself to stay silent, holding everything in before she explodes. Later, Rhiannon meets AJ at a bar like they planned, but Craig suddenly shows up and sits with them. He introduces himself to AJ, then immediately asks him to leave so he can be alone with Rhiannon. AJ feels uncomfortable and hurt, so he leaves. Rhiannon tries to follow him out, but he has already disappeared. On her way home, she finds Marcus outside drunk. She helps him get back to his house, and while he isn't looking, she grabs his phone. What she sees on it shocks her. Back home, she storms into the basement with her knife. She tells Julia she now knows the truth. Julia is a fraud. She pretends to have a perfect life, but the reality is a disaster. She reads Julia's private messages with Marcus out loud, revealing their toxic relationship, full of fights and manipulation. Rhiannon is convinced that Julia has ruined Marcus's life, just like she ruined hers years ago. Julia finally breaks down, sobbing. She admits Marcus is abusive and controlling. He's the one who destroys everything, not her. Rhiannon is thrown off, confused, but not fully convinced. Meanwhile, Officer Marina reads Rhiannon's article about Julia's disappearance and becomes even more suspicious. The next morning, she meets with her superior and lays out all the pieces. Julia, Rhiannon's friend from school, is missing. Rhiannon reported it in the media before Marcus even called the police. Rhiannon fought with Julia at the club, then left at the exact time Ryan was murdered. Mike was killed the same night Rhiannon was at the bar where he was last seen alive. Everything points to one horrifying truth. All the victims are connected to Rhiannon, and now Julia might be next. Marina continues explaining that she noticed Rhiannon struggles with being unnoticed, and it's very possible she's killing people just to draw attention to herself. Her superior instructs her to go question Marcus. Meanwhile, Rhiannon is sitting and eating with Julia. Julia tells her that Marcus will keep searching until he finds her, but Rhiannon tells her he won't, because by then her life will be over. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and Rhiannon becomes extremely nervous. She warns Julia not to speak or make any sound, because if she does, Rhiannon will end the life of whoever is at the door, and then end Julia's life too. Rhiannon goes to open the door and is surprised to find AJ there. He tells her Norman sent him because she wasn't answering. She explains that she sent Norman a message saying she was sick and couldn't come to work today. She asks AJ to tell Norman she'll be back tomorrow, and when she thanks him for checking on her, he responds coldly, saying he only came because Norman asked him to. Suddenly, AJ hears a sound coming from inside the house, and Rhiannon becomes visibly tense. AJ assumes Craig is there with her, which upsets him, so he leaves. When Rhiannon returns to the basement, she sees the plate shattered on the floor. Julia quickly says it fell off the table on its own. Then Julia suddenly attacks Rhiannon and cuts her with scissors she managed to grab while Rhiannon was gone. She tries to throw pieces of broken glass at her, and they struggle violently until Rhiannon grabs a broomstick and hits Julia aggressively. Then, she puts Julia in the bathtub to help her regain consciousness from the blow, and Julia tells her that she reminded her of Marcus, because the last time he hit her, he slammed her head into a glass door. But Rhiannon angrily denies being anything like Marcus, saying she's only getting rid of bullies like Julia. She talks to her and asks why she was so cruel to her back in school. Julia confesses that she hated herself and bullied Rhiannon to make her hate herself too. She says she was jealous because Rhiannon was loved and had her father with her, and hurting her made her feel happy and relieved. She apologizes for everything she did to her. At that moment, Rhiannon gets a message from Craig telling her that the police are at his workshop because Julia's car was found parked there before she vanished. Meanwhile, Marina is at Craig's workshop questioning his coworkers because the police discovered Julia's car in that location. She notices a security camera there, and when she searches Craig's office, the flash drive containing the security footage is missing, which makes her realize someone took it to get rid of the evidence. That night, Julia sees Rhiannon dressed up and ready to go out to meet Craig. Julia offers to help her with her makeup to make her look better. Rhiannon agrees, and Julia considers stabbing her in the eye with the eyeliner to escape, but she hesitates and doesn't do it. When Rhiannon arrives at Craig's house, she finds he has prepared dinner for her himself. She talks to him about Julia and tells him she doesn't want him to tell the police during questioning that she was with both him and Julia on the night Julia disappeared. She tells him she had an event to film at that time and didn't go, and she lied to her boss saying she did. If he finds out she deceived him, he might fire her. Craig believes her. The next day at work, Norman asks Rhiannon to write a detailed article about Julia, including what she likes and dislikes, and tells her AJ will help her with it. Rhiannon becomes anxious when she learns Jeff met Marcus and talked about her. Later, Rhiannon and AJ go to see Julia's friends, who formed a team to search for her. There, she sees Jeff and Marcus talking together and focusing on her. her, which makes her uneasy. At that moment, Officer Marina arrives and talks to Julia's friends, asking about Rhiannon, and is surprised when they say she's not their friend and that they used to bully her back in high school. Marina's suspicions about Rhiannon increase. She goes to Rhiannon to talk and tries to coax information out of her, telling her she must be a very kind person to have forgiven Julia for what she did to her in school and to be helping find her now. AJ is confused because Rhiannon never mentioned knowing Julia at all, and Rhiannon becomes extremely tense. Suddenly, Marcus approaches angrily and confronts her, saying he knows she stole Julia's shirt from his house and threatens to have her fired from work. AJ steps in to help and protect her, but she snaps at him and tells him to stay away because he's obsessed with her. Rhiannon then chases after Marcus and pulls out her knife, intending to kill him. But at that moment, Jeff sees her and is shocked. He runs away before she can reach him, and she chases after him. By bad luck, a bus suddenly comes and hits him, ending his life instantly. After that, Rhiannon goes to the lake, planning to throw the knife away and get rid of it, but she receives a threatening message from Marcus, so she changes her mind, keeps the knife, and leaves. She then goes to Julia and decides to make a deal with her. She will forgive her, but only if Julia helps her get revenge on Marcus, since she said he hurts her and treats her violently. She accuses him of kidnapping her and assaulting her more than once. Julia agrees, but she is hesitant. Rhiannon tells her she will tie her up in another place and make Marcus come and touch the knife. Then she'll call the police to catch him red-handed. She warns Julia not to trick her or play any of her usual games. Then Rhiannon leaves the house with Julia to carry out their plan. They arrive at a house Marcus owns where there is a security alarm system. Rhiannon ties Julia up inside and places the knife near her. When Marcus arrives after the alarm goes off, he is shocked to see Julia tied up. As usual, he doubts her and accuses her of being involved with the person who kidnapped her and cheating on him. He attacks her out of jealousy and starts choking her. At that moment, Rhiannon appears and orders him to leave Julia alone after she has already called the police. Marcus breaks down crying out of fear that Julia will leave him, and he threatens to throw himself down the stairs and kill himself. When Rhiannon feels that Julia might believe him and take his side, she decides to push him and ends his life. At the same time, the police arrive, and Rhiannon warns Julia not to say anything except what they agreed on. She is surprised when Marina comes with the officers, and Marina's look at her is full of suspicion. Then, Rhiannon is seen at the police station staring at Marina, wishing she could kill her and get rid of her. Marina then questions Rhiannon and tells her that her situation is difficult because there is no explanation for why she was there with Julia at that moment. Rhiannon replies that she found the address of that house by accident at Marcus's place and suspected Julia was there. And her suspicion turned out to be correct, especially since she already knew Marcus treated Julia harshly, and before he killed himself, he threatened both her and Julia that he would end their lives just like he did with Ryan and Mike. When Marina shows her a picture of the knife, Rhiannon tells her that it was Marcus's and that he threatened them with it. But Marina is surprised because the knife is a woodworking knife used by carpenters, and she suspects it belonged to Rhiannon's father since he was a carpenter. And because she loved him and was attached to him, she likely kept it. And when she found out that Julia, who ruined her life, wanted to buy her house, which was the only thing left of her father, she lost her mind and turned into a monster. Rhiannon breaks down and denies every accusation. When Marina questions Julia, she finds that Julia repeats exactly the same story as Rhiannon, that Marcus threw himself down the stairs to avoid going to prison. And when she shows her a picture of the knife, Julia lies and claims it belonged to Marcus. Afterward, Marina argues with her supervisors because they don't believe that Rhiannon is a serial killer. They think she is harmless and innocent, pretending to be weak so everyone will trust her. The next day, Rhiannon is released due to lack of evidence proving she is the killer. When she arrives home, she finds Julia at her door, telling her she doesn't know where to go to escape the reporters who are following her everywhere. Julia appears nervous and worried because they planned and lied to the police, but Rhiannon assures her that they will be fine. They go out together at night, trying to start fresh and become friends. Julia takes Rhiannon's bank card to withdraw money since Marcus had canceled her own card when she disappeared. Afterwards, Rhiannon dances and is extremely happy. Meanwhile, Marina sneaks into Rhiannon's house and searches for any evidence that can support her suspicions. She finds in a drawer the flash drive containing the surveillance footage that Rhiannon stole from Craig's office at the workshop. When Marina checks it, she sees footage of Rhiannon slashing Julia's car tires. She becomes very happy because she has finally found evidence condemning Rhiannon. The next day, Rhiannon is sitting on the roof with Julia and suggests that Julia stay with her and take Saren's room. At that moment, she receives a message from AJ confessing his love for her, which makes Rhiannon very happy. When she enters the house, she is shocked to find Marina in front of her. Marina tells her she found the surveillance footage and now has evidence against her, and she knows she will kill someone else. Rhiannon responds defiantly, showing no fear. Then Rhiannon goes to work with Julia, and her status at work has completely changed. Everyone treats her like a hero because she saved Julia. Julia sits with Rhiannon and all the coworkers in the office to tell them about what she suffered with Marcus. Suddenly, Julia becomes uncomfortable and decides to leave, which makes Rhiannon anxious and scared. But Julia reassures her that she's fine and that she will go to her house to get her things. Then goes to Craig at the workshop and is surprised that he wants her to sell him the workshop and is determined to take it from her in any way. He even has the contract ready for her to sign. She is forced to sign it because she is afraid Craig will tell the police she was with him and Rhiannon the night she disappeared. Meanwhile, Rhiannon is at the store ignoring calls from Saren. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door, and she finds AJ, and she decides to tell him she broke up with Craig. It's clear she has fallen in love with AJ, and he becomes very happy. The next morning, Rhiannon tries to reach Julia since she hasn't responded since yesterday. She leaves her a voice message asking where the bank card is because she received a message that a large amount of money was withdrawn. When she returns, AJ tells her that a police officer friend sent him a picture of the murder weapon used by the serial killer. When AJ sees the picture of the knife, he remembers it's the same one Rhiannon always had at the office, and he suspects she is the killer, not Marcus, as she and Julia claimed. Rhiannon tries to calm him down, but AJ searches the whole house for the knife and can't find it, which increases his suspicion. She is forced to confess what she did, that she was a bad person, but she has changed, and her life changed because of him. AJ responds by calling her a monster. Rhiannon breaks down crying, begging him not to leave her and to stay by her side, but AJ keeps pushing her away, trying to leave. At that moment, Rhiannon grabs a kitchen knife and kills AJ, stabbing him repeatedly while screaming that she is not a monster. Suddenly, Saren arrives at the house and Rhiannon is shocked. The series ends without releasing a new season.